Good morning, this is Fiona from Indie Live Radio. I'm at Bannockburn, where of course at 1 o'clock there's going to be a rally, and that is the statue of Robert the Bruce. Very quiet at the moment, as you can see, not many people around. That's the castle through there. Beautiful views all around from this spot. A little bit misty. I'm hoping I can also catch up with Neil from Yes Slates and give some coverage of that, and I'm hoping also to cover some of the speeches from the rally. I don't know who the speakers are, but we'll find out as we go on. So for the moment, nice and quiet. There's Robert the Bruce. We've found the Yes Slates. This is the stand going up. That's Neil, John, Leslie, and there's going to be Yes Stones as well. That's the cairn for all the Yes Stones to go on. But at the moment we're just getting the framework set up, because the Yes Slates themselves weigh, how many stones do they weigh, Neil, altogether? How many stones are the slates? It's several, isn't it? Several. And they're all in these big boxes here. A few people starting to arrive. You can see flags working their way up the road, but here we have just erected the Yes Slates, and I'm just going to walk along them so you can see them. These are gorgeous, and it says yes, 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 independence for Scotland. Each tile beautifully painted by different members of the Yes Stones group. I'll walk a bit closer so you get a bit of a close-up. I have posted on the Indie Live Radio page, I hope. I'm never sure these are actually working, so if you want to have a look on that one while I'm doing this, you can see it. So I'll just go a wee bit close. So that says yes. That's gorgeous, isn't it? Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. There's people trying to the back of that. Yes, thank you. What I'm trying to say is that it's more in the campground.
There we go, beautiful work of art. And this is the Yes Stones cairn getting constructed. Oh, there's quite a few already. Just have a wee look at the people are starting to put their stones on.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, that's mine, just for posterity. Oh, there's some beauties. Look at the bottom ones. They're lovely. Oh, there's another slate.
The bottom lot were from Kirkcaldy and the top lot Mike's done.
Well, the little slates at the bottom are great, aren't they?
And they're fabulous.
Well, my wife says you're Brett now.
Oh, that's one of mine as well, I think. It's funny, you see stones and then you see them again at the next thing and think, oh, that's another. And then just at the top of the hill, we've got flags starting to arrive, starting to make their way up. That'll be all under one banner. And look who I found, our very own Jerry. Give us a wave, Jerry.
Hello, Indie Live Video.
I'm delighted to see you.
So here we are. It's like old times. There's Bruno setting up the sound. All by himself.
Oh.
Generator over there.
All right.
Right enough, that's going to be making a racket, but we're hopefully going to be plugged directly into the sound. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah. Great.
To wrap a cable along there as well for the sound.
Do we know who any of the speakers are? I've not heard anything. No.
No.
Just asking as well.
Oh, it's
Okay, I think we're just about to maybe get Kevin Gores on the stage there. And look, there's Jerry live streaming to Independence Live. And also coming up on Indie Live Radio's Facebook group. So I'll do this to the page and we'll just see if we can, between us, manage to get all the good stuff. Not a massive crowd, as you can see. Plenty of flags, but not the numbers we're used to seeing at these events. But it's the first one after the pandemic easing, so perhaps that's to be expected.
We're going to get started now. Thank you all for coming to the annual All Under One Banner Bannockburn Rally. Few words to start with. First of all, everybody stay safe. The COVID pandemic has not gone away, so observe social distancing and just make sure everybody's looked after. Okay, so that's just to cover ourselves here. We want everybody to enjoy this and go away safe and sound. Today, just another thing, I want to give a wee shout out to Now Scotland, who yesterday held a rally, used the mandate rally at the Scottish Parliament, so well done to Now Scotland. That was great to see you there. It's important. There's a degree of urgency, I think, about getting Scottish independence and a second independence referendum. The longer we remain attached to the British state, the longer we remain attached to the Tory government and their corrupt practices. Hancock, the Health Secretary, has been in the news in the last few days. Yep. Actually, what he did was probably the least of his crimes. 130,000 people dying through the COVID crisis, and all that's gone with that, I think, is really his biggest crime. But there you go. That's Hancock. That's the Tories for you. Yeah, the longer we stay attached to the British state, the longer the Tory government can impose its will on Scotland. We're not even allowed to mention Scotland anymore. We've got a union unit that says, don't mention Scotland. We've only one nation. The British nation and the Union Jack, that's the only flag we have to fly. Yeah, well, so that's the nature of the government that's running the UK, and the longer Scotland remains attached to them, the longer that the economy, that the way this country is run is controlled, large bits of it controlled by the Tory party and the Tory government. The longer they're in power, the more damage they can do to the environment with their support for the oil companies. The longer they're in power and in control, the longer that the hostile environment stays in place and immigrants and refugees are chased by the border police and the border force. The longer we've got them in power, the longer we've got nuclear weapons at Faz Lane. Last week we saw a British ship in the Black Sea there with a BBC reporter on board to wind up the Russians. So the longer they're in power, the longer we're in danger. The longer this country has to face the problems of being attached to the British state. So we're saying to Nicola Sturgeon and to the Scottish Government, use the mandate, use it now. Don't hang about, don't wait. The longer we have to wait, the bigger the problems that there's going to be in the future. So use the mandate. Okay, so thanks very much. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is going to be James Scott from the Scottish Resistance, to give the salutation to Bannockburn, and then it'll be finished off after him. Kevin Wilson will come up to give us a song. Okay, thank you very much.
Kevin Wilson.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Bannockburn. And thanks very much for all under one banner who have organised this event. You know, it's been a long time, folks. They've tried to keep us down. But we are going to rise and we are going to win our freedom. Remember Robert Bruce. Remember Bannockburn. I'm now going to do the salutation. For Bruce, for Scotland, and for freedom! Repeat after me. For Bruce, for Scotland, and for freedom! Thank you very much. We face two existential threats. One is climate change and one is the destructive nature of nuclear weapons. And today we want to welcome Gwen Sinclair from CND to say a few words for us today. Gwen.
Beskar Mahu Ladunya, good afternoon, Bannockburn. What a great honour it is to be here to speak at such an auspicious place and such an amazing gathering of people again after our incredibly horrible last year and a half that we've had. The last march that I was at was in January 2019, and I feel as if this is just another option again. We're starting to get back out there and it's great to see so many of you out there. But basically today, funnily enough, I might just mention some nuclear weapons and I also might mention climate change, because these are the issues which I think that Scotland needs to face very, very head on at the moment. We cannot afford to even wait until we're independent to deal with these issues because they're extremely dangerous. And I think that they've been given very little coverage, as far as I'm concerned, in our mainstream media, not surprisingly. But I do think that we're going to have to make a bit more noise about it. But basically, 707 years ago, there was a battle here, and it was probably the most decisive battle in Scottish history. And without this battle, it would have been touch and go that Scotland would have survived as a nation at all. Thankfully, the odds were in Scotland's favour that day, and with the forces of Scotland and the people of Scotland united. And by nightfall, we had Edward II, Tucktail and Skedaddle back across the border to think again. Well, basically, 707 years later, Scotland is still not free. And we have been given a semblance of democracy, aye, but that has been designed to find us still fighting over the scraps from Longshank's table. So how much has changed really? We've had a restored Scottish Parliament for 20 years, aye, but is a Parliament under threat of being removed? Our powers have been reduced in that time by 111 powers which were not restored to the Scottish Parliament after Brexit. That has caused an erosion of our powers rather than progress, which you would have expected a Parliament to have made in 20 years. We have a voting system that keeps people in there that the majority haven't voted for, and our Scottish Parliament has such limited powers that it took a terrible situation like the pandemic to show us that we can't do what we want to do for the people of Scotland, because we had to wait until Westminster decided they were going to fund the lockdown before we could close down to all but essential businesses. We couldn't close our borders or shut down our airports to avoid contamination. We had to no say over that, and we have had to tolerate day after day of the media, the mainstream media, decrying the choices that the Scottish Parliament are making, undermining confidence, which means people haven't been necessarily adhering to the advice to keep them safe, and basically we're expected to look to Westminster for our guidance. That's what they want us to do. I don't want us to be fighting over the scraps from Longshank's table. I want us to be fighting and having our own table. I don't want us to be fighting at all. Just like Robert the Bruce wanted. I wonder what he would have thought of our Scottish Parliament having no say over what happens to us. Say if we're made redundant or if we retire and we're given the smallest pension in Europe, even though we've paid into it year after year. I don't think we'll ever forget the struggles of our ancestors. And we stand here today in this auspicious place where the action on this day turned the tides for Scotland and they did us proud. This makes me think about the struggles and tribulations we are facing today in Scotland. For example, I wanted to mention that NHS working day and night to do all they could to turn the tide of COVID. And they've done us proud, no matter what the cuckoos in the nest of the Scottish Parliament cry. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the essential workers for all they've done and to continue to do for the people of Scotland, putting themselves at risk day after day. And know this, no matter what negativity you read in that mainstream media, it is not the media that so many of us here today bother to support in any shape or form. And I'm eternally grateful for all you've done. Your efforts will never be forgotten. In fact, if I had my way, we'd be spending a whole lot more cash on funding our NHS, our education service, and putting in money to avert the climate change crisis. I'd be investing now to avoid another year like the one we've just had. I'd be taking steps to get a contingency plan together for a pandemic should it happen again. Not like the UK government, who were given that advice and ignored it. They didn't want to spend the money on making good for a potential pandemic, which was predicted to happen. No, they didn't want to spend money on their NHS or to stockpile PPE. They didn't want to do any of those things. And I know what you're going to not be surprised that I'm going to say what they did spend their money on. Well, let me tell you, in 2016 they agreed to spend £205 billion of our taxes renewing their nuclear weapons, instead of supporting the progressive steps towards being prepared for a pandemic. And Boris Johnson is now working on his 2021 defence strategy, and this is putting 40% more nuclear weapons to be placed in Scotland for the foreseeable future. And that's only 30 miles from where we are just now. They're going to be upping their nuclear weapons from 180 to 260 warheads over the next few years. In November, Boris said he was going to be setting out a £16.5 billion increase in defence, and he told he would be spending £190 billion on defence by 2025. £190 billion in the middle of a pandemic, where his party members jibe our dreams of independence. And with "let's get over the pandemic," it's not the time for independence. And yet, this amount represents over 5 years' worth of Scottish Government budget, where we can run our free health service, bring in free prescriptions, plans to bring back free dental care, free bus passes for the young and the over 60s, and baby boxes, and a new weekly child tax to help lift families out of poverty. And this year we have had something worth celebrating that I bet you haven't heard about on the BBC. On the 22nd of January, the United Nations International Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons became ratified. This is a ban treaty, which means that the whole world is no longer willing to tolerate the threat that is doled out by the 9 nations who have nuclear weapons. Against the wishes of the Scottish Parliament, who voted against replacing Trident in 2016, the UK government is one of those nations, and worse still, as if to add insult to injury, Scotland is to be having to host them for the foreseeable future. Not just that, instead of signing up to be part of the momentous moment which came about by the global efforts of grassroots people just like us, people who got together to say no, we don't want to be buying a one-way ticket on a journey towards nuclear Armageddon any longer. The UK government, as I've said earlier, have decided to increase their nuclear weapons rather than signing up to the ban treaty. But I'm really pleased to say, in Scotland, so far 5 councils have signed up to support the UN ban treaty. Now you can cheer if your council's mentioned here. 5, Glasgow, Renfrewshire, Edinburgh, and East Ayrshire. Yay! Well, I'm here from Ayrshire CND, and we're working to get the other 2 council areas from Ayrshire to join as well. So that's something we're hoping to manage to achieve this year. Now, if we could do this right, we can't do a lot some of the time, potentially because we're at home a lot at the moment. But what we could do is we could write to our councillors. If your council wasn't mentioned on that list, please consider writing to your council leader and asking them to join the UN ban treaty. And let's come back next year and have a full house of the 32 councils in Scotland that will not be complicit in going against the nuclear ban treaty, and will not be accepting the UK government's increase in the yield of nuclear weapons forced on us, nor will we be accepting having the marked increase in the transportation of the nuclear weapons along our roads through our towns and villages put us at risk. This increase in nuclear weapons means Stirling here will have more nuclear weapons, convoys coming through it, for Brian to lie down under. I think he missed that, probably just as well. But more seriously, the people of Scotland will be put at more risk than ever before of a nuclear accident, making this even more urgent. What kind of message is it really giving to the Tories, who have just also removed the UK from the first no strike first policy that they had? So basically, every pound spent on nuclear weapons is a pound less spent on our armed personnel. The new Tory defence policies, including the cut of 10,000 troops from our armed forces, all so that Boris Johnson can feel like a man on the world stage. Every pound spent on nuclear weapons is a pound less spent on our healthcare. Every pound spent on nuclear weapons is a pound less spent on our children. And every pound spent on nuclear weapons is a pound less spent on our future. You deserve better than this. Scotland deserves better than this. And the world deserves better than this. We have a better plan for Scotland, and each day, in my opinion, more and more people are beginning to realise the truth about how little say we have in our own decisions, and how we can be a progressive nation again, choosing to properly defend our shores, to properly look after our elderly and our young people, to choose climate action, affordable housing, decent pensions, outstanding healthcare, and in the words of a much more capable and outstanding speaker than me, I have a dream. Thank you, Morin Tyne, Short Alapa Gubra.
Because as a socialist, it means fundamentally we believe in peace. We believe in exporting love and cooperation and human solidarity. We don't believe in exporting war and hate and conflict. So why are we here to celebrate a battle that led to the loss of thousands of lives, hundreds of livestock? Are we here as in a militaristic fashion to celebrate warfare? Or are we here to keep alive an important memory and an important symbol of our sovereignty as a nation? That's why we come here today, and we come here every year, despite the fact it's a battle over 700 years ago. It was a battle that determined the future of Scotland at that time, and it established the basis 14 years later for the declaration in 1328 of Scotland's sovereignty, a sovereignty that we held for over 300 years before the Act of the Union, when our sovereignty was sold by a parcel of rogues for pieces of gold, in secret behind the backs of the people, a sovereignty that they had no right to sell. And brothers and sisters, ever since 1707, people have argued and fought and tried to regain our sovereignty, not because we believe in war, not because we believe in domination, not because we want more blood shed. On the contrary, the modern epitome of an independent Scotland isn't a war-loving nation. It's a peace-loving nation. It's an independent Scotland that wants to do away with the weapons of mass destruction in the Clyde. It's an independent nation that wants to invest billions of pounds in our schools, in our hospitals, in our homes, to eradicate ignorance, to eradicate homelessness, to wage war on poverty and inequality, not in anyone else, anywhere in the world. That's the vision that we carry in our hearts now of an independent, sovereign Scotland. But symbols are important, and symbolism is important. You know, you think of the sacrifices that people gave in relation to 700 years ago. You think of the people who not only led others into battle, but the motivation of those who followed them into battle. People willing to give up their lives for the likes of Robert Bruce, for the likes of William Wallace. Why? Because they believed in a cause. Because they believed that the people that were leading them believed in that cause. Let's remember, when this battle took place, Robert the Bruce's wife, sisters, daughter had already been held prisoner for 8 years. They were already casualties of the wars of independence. His brother had already been slain and his head cut off as a symbol of English domination. These people who led the Scots into battle then actually believed in the cause of freedom. What we've got to now, I think, say with more gusto than ever is, does the current political leadership of the independence movement also believe in the cause of independence? Because, brothers and sisters, we have given not one mandate for IndyRef 2, not 2 mandates for IndyRef 2. We've now given 5 mandates for IndyRef 2. The demand is, give us IndyRef 2. That's what we're demanding. We don't go to Westminster and ask for permission for something that's our inalienable right. It is our inalienable right to determine our future and whether we are a sovereign nation or not. Sure, we had a ballot 7 years ago and we narrowly lost it despite raising ourselves from some 25% to 45% during a very unequal battle. A battle that was dominated by the corporate media and all the hired liars in Fleet Street and across the world. Despite that, we rose from 25 to 45. Brothers and sisters, I think it's quite clear now. We're not starting this battle on 25 or on 45. We're starting this battle nearer to 55. And we're going to go to 60, 65% in the next indication, the next referendum that takes place. That's why they won't give us it. Do you think they're going to give us the right to leave and take away all of the wealth and the resources that they've been exploiting for the last 300 years? They don't want us to go. They need us. That's why Westminster won't give a new referendum, because they know that Scotland will vote to leave this horrible, stinking, rancid union of hypocrisy, of deceit, of lies. And that's why we need that Scottish Parliament to show an ounce of the courage, an ounce of the backbone of those warriors who faced bigger forces, outnumbered 3-1, who faced less equipment in terms of the cavalry and the armaments that were available to the English invading army. They showed courage to enter the battlefield because they believed in a cause, they believed in Scotland's sovereignty. Scottish Parliament, members of the SNP, you have been elected not to run a devolved Scotland. You've been elected to lead us to an independent Scotland. That's why you've been elected. So our message, loud and clear here, as we remember those who fought before. We remember the symbolism of the courage, of the commitment, of the belief in a cause. We say to those who sit in both Westminster and in Holyrood, don't get comfortable. Don't accept the Westminster veto on Indy Ref 2. Be polite by all means. Let them know the date. But don't ask them. Tell them we are going to have Indy Ref 2 and we're going to build a new, a better and a peace-loving Scotland that will make all of us proud and that will celebrate for hundreds of years to come. Thanks very much, brothers and sisters.
Hello everyone, how are you doing? Great to be back again. Back again on the rally tour. Going to start with a song about this great man behind me. Apart for these two. He's going to heckle all day or what? So I was on my way back down the road, back in the day when pubs were open late, if you remember that. So at 2 in the morning I was on my way home from a pub in Edinburgh. I was walking down the Royal Mile and I bumped into Robert the Bruce. Last night as I staggered home from drinking on the town, I sang a song of Scotland, a king who once was crowned. Then appeared before me the Bruce upon his steed, a lion rampant, flag and shield of the country he once freed. He pulled me up behind him onto his horse's back, and we made our way to Holyrood, down the mile into the Plack. We stopped outside the Parliament of a northern British state, the token gesture powers and the scraps from a London plate. So we galloped on through the mist and up into the clouds, to the towns and the cities where poverty abounds. Fit banks for the working poor, disabled and the sick, an inconvenient truth for the elitist Tory rich, cleared from ancestral homes in a land the aristocrat and the Arab sheikh now owns. We returned to the capital of this northern British state. He dropped me at my tenement down by the Cannon Gate. I awoke in the afternoon and wonder I could see his lion rampant, flag and shield placed there next to me. It's not why we fought, he said, it's not why Wallace played to bow and be subservient. Lifeblood was not shed. They fought and died for liberty. Don't let it be in vain. Rise up, stand up, get off your knees, and be a nation once again. Rise up, stand up, and get off your knees. Be a nation once again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, my name's Kevin Gore. Any music I'm doing today you can find on Spotify, iTunes, all that sort of thing. A new song is a song that I wrote for, if you cast your memory back to the day after the referendum, 2014, in Freedom Square, Mandela Square as we call it, Freedom Square. There was two girls who stood against a Britannia horde, a violent Britannia horde who intimidated everyone that was there. They were kicking, punching, spitting, abusing people, anyone that had a soul tire, anyone that voted yes and campaigned peacefully. But these two girls refused to be moved, they refused to be intimidated, and eventually it was the police that actually took them away. Sarah and Sophie Johnston, a song called The Johnson Sisters. Well, the mob came down to Glasgow town, Mandela Freedom Square, with their fascist chants and racist rants. Hatred was in the air. The old John Bull, the divide and rule, had primed that mob with hate. With their ignorance and indifference, they were sure to take the bait. But bold and steadfast against that violent mass, the Johnson sisters stood and held aloft the St. Andrew's cross, a flag of nationhood. They did not flinch, nor give an inch to the mob. They showed no fear, but they stood their ground and they cried out loud, "The Sultan remains here." Well, the mob they attacked and they kicked, they punched and spat, and all those who disagreed or had campaigned through peaceful gain for a country to be free. The Britannia horde, their numbers soared, and they soiled the Scottish air. But they could not disband these sisters in arms or drive them from the square. For bold and steadfast against that violent mass, the Johnson sisters stood and held aloft the St. Andrew's cross, a flag of nationhood. They did not flinch, no give an inch. To the mob they showed no fear, but they stood their ground and they cried out loud, the soldier remains here. Well, it took the police to intervene, marched those girls away, and imprisoned them in the cells at night for what crime they would not say. Sarah and Sophie Johnson, remember those sisters' names, for they represent the future and to keep the fire aflame. They're the fire of fascist bigots who represent the past and cling to a dying union for whom the die is cast. For bold and steadfast against that violent mass, the Johnson sisters stood and held aloft the St. Andrew's cross, a flag of nationhood. They did not flinch, nor give an inch. To the mob they showed no fear, but they stood their ground and they cried out loud, the soldier remains here. The soldier remains here. Yeah, the soldier remains here. The Johnson sisters. Hey, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to finish off a quick song called Independence Day. I know that the Silent Klansman is one of his favourite songs. Oh, he's meant to be silent. So I wrote this song back in 2013. Played it all over Scotland. Over in Germany for the Germans, for Scottish independence. Over in Holland as well for the Dutch for Scottish independence. I was marching on the street today with my yes badge on. A stranger, he approached me to tell me I was wrong. He said I was a dreamer. I will let him have his say. Saying yes, my friend, I'm dreaming of an Independence Day. And when that day I'm dreaming of, well, it comes along for sure. We will have a country where all can be assured. A nation of equality, fairness and respect. And the government we vote for is a government we get on an Independence Day. An Independence Day. Yes, my friend, I'm dreaming of an Independence Day. I'm not anti-English, I'm not an Irish or the Welsh. I'm just dreaming of a country that distributes its wealth. Downtrodden people have opportunity, break the chains, free themselves from the traps of poverty. An Independence Day, an Independence Day. Yes, my friend, I'm dreaming of an Independence Day. And I know that I am fortunate, and I know well off I am, compared to those in Syria or in Palestine. just dreaming of a country. One day we'll be free to determine our own future. Well, our people's destiny on an independent state, on an independent state. Yes, my friend, I'm dreaming of an independent state. Yeah, I was marching on the street today down Bannockburn, and a stranger he approached me to tell me I was wrong. Said I was a dreamer. Oh, well, I let him have his say. Say, yes, my friend, I'm dreaming of an independent state. Thanks very much, folks. Take care. Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Next speaker is Charlotte Ahmed from Now Scotland. Charlotte.
Hello. Thank you to that fantastic singer. That song sums it up, doesn't it? Kevin, wonderful. And I want to talk about the internationalism of this movement. Yes, we're for Scottish independence, but we recognise all over the world there are people fighting for their democratic rights and independence, and we stand with them just as they stand with us. And today I've seen Catalonia flag here. Well done to our comrades over in Catalonia, just been released from jail. How many people in the leadership of our independence movement would sacrifice enough that they would go to jail for this movement? How many in the leadership, I wonder? We're talking about Bannockburn here and fighting. If you want something strongly enough, you fight for it. I'm from Now Scotland, an organisation that was founded out of an all-under-one banner rally because people were fed up with leaving it up to the politicians. They wanted a members' organisation where the members' views are paramount and we don't have to wait for the politicians to tell us what to do, because we'd be waiting a hell of a long time for independence if we relied on our politicians today. This is a movement about the people. You, people in your families and communities, what have you been asked to do apart from vote? You've been asked to come on all under one banner rallies. You've been asked to go to yes groups. These are the grassroots of this movement. But when we look forward to where this movement's going, we have to be serious about what we have to do. As former speakers have said, we're not going to get handed this on a plate by Westminster. That is a corrupt government run for the millionaires, by the millionaires, who give them, friends, public money for a service that isn't delivered. This is why we've got hundreds of thousands of people suffering, 150,000 people dying of COVID in one of the richest countries of the world. The system is not working for ordinary people, and we in Scotland have a chance to change that. What do we have to do to do it? First thing I think we need to do, in order to get independence, we need to mobilise hundreds of thousands of more people than we already have. That is the voice that the Parliament in Scotland will listen to, and it will be forced to listen as well in Westminster. We need to get young people into this movement. They have the energy and the ideas and the commitment. They're not interested in political parties, they're interested in outcomes. Climate change. Look at this land around you. I was born not far from here. It is a land rich in resources for tackling climate change, for reforming farming and housing. Is any of that being done with the urgency that's needed? No. But young people know for their future that has to change. We need to bring climate change activists into the indie movement. We need to welcome immigrants into Scotland to help build our new society. We need to reform land, reform housing, get investment in our health service as if people mattered. And if our politicians won't do it, if the politicians won't listen, we have to make them listen. One of the symbols of the British state in Scotland is Trident, a useless heap of junk in Faz Lane. And you see what the Tories are like now, sending gunboats to Gibraltar, sending the Royal Navy to stop desperate people crossing the Channel, jailing people in virtual concentration camps just for being here and wanting to get a better life for their families. Now, we don't, by and large, do that in Scotland, but that's what the Tories do, and that's what they'll continue to do if we don't fight for independence. Build a new Scotland built on different principles, built from the ground upwards, built for the people, because it's the people that matter. People talk an awful lot about Scottish history. And of course, behind me is a great symbol of the fights of the past. But the fight of the future is the future of the planet and the future of our society as if ordinary people mattered. And an independent Scotland can deliver that if the people make it happen. So I want to see you turning up in greater numbers on the demonstrations that will come. I want to see us talk about direct action and civil disobedience. This is the only thing that will shift this. We could be stuck with the Tories for the next 5 years. Are you prepared to put up with that for 5 years? No, of course you're not. No decent person would. So let's unite this movement along these principles. Get into the streets, get into your workplaces, get your work colleagues involved, get your trade unions signed up to an organisation like Now Scotland, bit of a promotion there for my group, because we need to unite even greater numbers in the fight for this independence. You do not defeat the British state on your knees pleading for a referendum. You defeat it by fighting. And it's a fighting spirit of these people of this country that will deliver. Don't wait on the politicians. Fight now for a future for you and your children.
Hello there. Next speaker is Pauline Brady from the NHS Pay Campaign. These are the people who have supported us during this pandemic. They deserve our support as well. So a big hand for Pauline. Up you come, Pauline. Thank you.
Hi. So public speaking isn't really a thing that I'm used to, so bear with me. So I am a mental health nurse within the NHS. I've worked throughout the pandemic. And as Bob said, I am a campaigner for the NHS pay, to get fair pay for all NHS staff who have lost over 20% of their pay in the last decade. I'm pretty new to politics. The first time I ever voted was in 2014, and I was already in my 30s. I understood very little about politics and how that affected me as a worker and as a mum. In 2014, I voted no to independence. Don't hate me. I voted no because I was scared, and I listened to the rubbish that the Tories were spilling, and because I didn't really get it. Whenever people tried to sell it to me, it would end up descending into people shouting about oil and how Scotland don't have a voice, but there was never really any content, so I'd never really understood it. And I failed myself, I failed Scotland at that time, because I didn't then go ahead and have a look at that and educate myself. But now, today, I am here after educating myself, and I'm here to say to the SNP that we need to get a date for another referendum, because it's time that Scotland became independent, and we need that date now. There's no more waiting. One of my biggest concerns about staying in the Union is the way workers of all kinds are continually left behind. We are seeing more fire and rehire tactics, poorer working conditions in businesses owned by billionaires, job losses so that the bosses can fill their pockets even more. The gender pay gap is increasing, and minority workers and migrants being treated like criminals rather than the skilled workers they are. Our public services are either being sold off, closed or privatised, and the Tories don't even try to hide it anymore. They're just out there just doing it. They don't care what any of us think. For years, the NHS has been underfunded. Services have been cut, and there's been sneaky ways of privatising the services to make money for the Tories. How can any government claim there's no money to pay nurses for the work that they do when they're paying private firms 3 to 4 times what it would cost to pay nurses properly? NHS staff have seen their wages frozen for more than a decade, which means highly trained nurses have fallen 15% below the rate of inflation in that time. Last month, the Scottish Government gave us a 4% pay rise, which equates to shrapnel for so many. We need to see our pay corrected, and we need to see it corrected now. We are hemorrhaging nurses, and we're in a staffing crisis. Without nurses, patients will undoubtedly die, because the few of us that are left, there's no way we can do the work of the thousands that are missing. This year's 4% pay increase has already become yet another below-inflation, empty gesture, with the inflation expected to rise this year to above 4%. We cannot afford to lose any more NHS staff. We need to free ourselves from the Westminster chokehold before it's too late. Last week, the despicable Dido Harding pledged to end the NHS's reliance on foreign workers. This is just another way for the Tories to impose their racist regime. There are 170,000 non-British born NHS staff who are the heart and soul of our NHS. Well, you know what? This is Scotland. We welcome refugees, we want migrants, and we won't let the Tories send them away. We will fight, and once we have independence, I fully expect the Scottish Government to give them the right to remain and to work to fully integrate them into Scottish society. Their experience and skills are just as valuable as any other human that graces the land we call Scotland. Over the past 18 months, we have seen more NHS privatisation than ever before, and south of the border have been hardest hit. And that just strengthens why we need an independent Scotland. One of the biggest challenges we have in the NHS is retaining and recruiting staff when the pay is so low for specialist jobs. We have heard for the last decade that if Scotland was independent, we would get fair pay equal to our colleagues in education. If we aren't careful, we won't have an NHS come independence, because the Tory government are hell-bent on dismantling the NHS. That latest attack on the NHS, which is a use of the government's institutional racism to send our cherished migrant colleagues out of the country they call home, and out of the country that they tirelessly work to save during this pandemic. We need to separate ourselves from the grotesque, racist, socialist rule of Westminster, and we need to do it now. Thanks.
We thought we'd get a young activist up here. We want to get young people involved in the movement. Yes, the last speaker is Alan Bell, who's a young activist for independence, a member of Now Scotland. Alan.
First of all, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. It's important that we're here because we are building the biggest mass movement that Scotland will ever see. This movement will be bigger than the anti-war movement against the war in Iraq. We need to put hundreds of thousands of people on the street if we're going to win independence. And this is the beginning right here. I want to say, I'm from Now Scotland. It's a one-member, one-vote democratic organisation that came from an all-under-one banner demonstration. And if you're not already a member, join us today, because we need to build the biggest movement this country's ever seen. No matter if you're in any party or no party, it's a democratic organisation for us to build the biggest campaign to put pressure on the government to make sure we win our independence. And we won't win our independence only from saying to people we need independence for the sake of independence. We need to tell people why Scotland will be a better independent nation than it is with this Tory, better watch my language, but this Tory government that we have right now, because we need to kick the Tories and break up the British state. We need a country without nuclear weapons. We need an anti-racist country. We need to go to fast lane and say we will not have nuclear weapons on our shore the day independence comes. Then we go to Dungavel and we say shame on you for letting this stay in our country. I will not have a detention centre that keeps migrants and refugees with no charge and have done nothing wrong who are fleeing their country here in Scotland. Shut down Dungavel now. We are looking to build a new Scotland, a Scotland, like I said, anti-racist, with green energy, without Trident, without nuclear weapons, that welcomes refugees. Look what happened in Kenmure Street just over a week ago. We showed the Home Office that they will not deport people from our country, because we welcome refugees. And we welcome everyone in this nation. And I want to say to the last speaker, what she said was absolutely amazing. My mum was a nurse for over 35 years. Migrants and refugees and nurses and the working class build the NHS. They should pay them properly. And in an independent Scotland, what we'll do is we will build the strongest NHS possible. We'll protect our workers, we'll protect the nurses. We will not kick them like the Tory government wants to do, and the government in Holyrood. So I ask everyone here today, what you need to do when you leave here today, because I'm the last speaker, is think of the person you can convince. Think of the person that's standing on the fence. Think of the person who's wavering because of COVID right now and think, hey, we can't become an independent nation. Look at smaller nations than us who have become independent and who are thriving. Look at the fact that the British state doesn't want to let us go. We know why that is. We'll be a strong, independent nation. We are a sovereign nation. We believe in that and we can fight for our independence. But it's going to take the biggest mass movement, I'll say it one more time, on the streets. 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. There's a few hundred of us here today, but next time there's going to be thousands. 10,000, 100,000. And that's how we'll put the pressure on. And that's how we'll win independence. Join us today. Join Now Scotland. All the Yes movements come together. Stop the infighting. We are going to win this together. And this is our moment. We're not going to wait forever. I'm not waiting a generation, as Boris Johnson said. I'm not waiting 10 years. I'm not waiting 5 years. Within 2 to 3 years, we're going to be an independent Scotland. Because we are Now Scotland. This is our moment. We're going to win independence. And we're going to win it now.
I made a mistake. We've got one other speaker. Silent man who stood there silent throughout the whole demonstration. Breaking silence.
Come on! Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? We can. Hard lines. So, just to finish off the rally today, I'm going to do this in a wee bit of reverse because this was thrown on me again by the wonderful Neil Mackay. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for your patience for hanging on today, and thank you to everybody who came out with the stalls. From the Yes donors over there in the distance, thank you very much, everybody. Everybody that came out with their individual Yes flags and their banners. I'd like to thank some of the stall holders here. I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank the community liaison police and the police force there for turning up today to keep us all safe. It's important that people recognise the work that they do. We have the Indy 2 Cafe here, we've got Indy Truck David here as well, and most importantly of all, we have you. What I'd like to say to finish off
is something very simple. When you see me going to the marches and I stand in front of the Unionists, I do it for several reasons, not only just for independence for my country and for a blow against Westminster, but I do it for all the people, not only at home but abroad, who want to see this country free from the shackles of the English Parliament. Is that you? So if you can't make the march, I make the march for you. What I'd like to say is, you see me at these events with this small placard here. It only has 3 words on it. 2 words are important, but 1 word is more important. It and yes are very important, but time is far more important than that. 707 years ago, the ground beneath your feet shook, and to this day, under there is the blood and the dust of our patriots that fought to free this country. You're standing on that hallowed ground right now. Never ever forget it. That's a long time ago. We can have a good time, we can have a short time, but right now for this movement we need the right time, and the right time will come when the SNP government decide to give us a date and we can work on it. And in the words of the Beastie Boys, you got to fight for your right to Indy. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much. Abba
And that's the end of the Bannockburn Rally. First one after 15 months of lockdown, so it feels really good to be out and doing something again. Obviously some people still very cautious, everybody very distanced, which was great. And we'll just leave you with sight of the giant saltire that's doing the rounds. It's absolutely huge. Let's just hope this is the start of things gearing up again. Let's hope that the Yes movement can put all its tensions and fractions aside, get together, and let's get Indy done.